everyone, welcome back to another edition of Movies That Move We. So, today we are going to discuss American fiction. This is based on the book Erasure by Percival Everett. And the gist of the story is, have an academic author, he's written many books, but they go over a lot of people's heads, so he's not selling a whole lot, and he's frustrated. His frustration reaches its height when an author, relatively new author, comes out with her first book. I shouldn't say relatively new, she is a new author, comes out with a book. Basically it's what folks call street lit. Comes out with a book that has black folks speaking not even like city slang, like country slang, like we's fitting to go to the store, y'all be wanting something. That's what she wrote.
Was terrible.
And if the main character Monk had hair, he would have pulled it out somewhere in the scene. So he decided to write something satirical, and much to his surprise and ire, it took off. So let's go from there. What were your thoughts on the movie and the message?
First of all, I thought it was a really good movie because I felt like this was one of the first black films where it wasn't that stereotypical type, even when they started getting into his family life and I guess how his general life is. I mean, they have a house in Martha Vineyard, they have another property, they're well-to-do, but they also have their issues at the same time. Like, the brother is on drugs and stuff like that. The sister works for a clinic and she's stressed out and smoking. It's just kind of like it gives, and even the jokes that they have amongst each other, it was just very like something that I haven't seen on television with an all black cast. So I appreciated that, but also I guess what I got from it, or what I'm taking away from it, is kind of just like, I feel like the film industry and the literacy industry is kind of just like, people want that more stereotypical story. Mm-hmm. And now that I said that, I don't know if maybe that's why they made his character so non-stereotypical, because it was just kind of like, he's just this really educated guy that wants to share a more, I guess, informative, or I guess educational kind of story, because isn't that what he was kind of writing about, was like more things that were making people think?
He was basing, and this comes out a little more in the book than it does in the movie, the stuff that he was writing about was like the retelling of Oedipus. And not only was it the retelling of Oedipus, but he was putting footnotes in something that's supposed to be fiction. When I say he was writing academic, he was going real deep. But that's not an unrealistic type of African American either.
Mm-hmm.
You have those people where they're highly educated, they earned it, they're knowledgeable and all of that stuff, but they sit outside of the social norm that most black folks are like, this is who we are. So the film was really talking about those two extremes. Mm-hmm. And he really wanted to get to the middle somehow, but the only way for him to get noticed, or any other black entertainer, mm-hmm. if you include books, TV, everything else under the banner of entertainment, the only way for black folks to do that is to write what they call something edgy and urban and raw. Mm. And so that means there's got to be a crack hole baby mama. There's got to be an urban setting where there's lots of drugs and violence. There has to be an overcoming story. So you started out broke and you ended less broker than you were
in the
in the
beginning.
beginning.
Yeah.
So Percival Everett in the book and in the film is really taking a dig at all of that. Now, there's only one scene in the movie that kind of gives you an example of what Monk, the main character, was writing.
Mm.
And quite frankly, it's hilarious how they chose to put that particular scene out there. Under normal circumstances, you're not supposed to laugh at that scene. You're supposed to go, oh my gosh, that's horrific. How do they overcome? But the way it was done,
It was funny.
I busted out laughing the first, second, and third time, and fourth time that I watched it. So, but the interesting thing about that is in the book, you have all of these things happening along the way. He had to take a leave to go see about his mother, which also happened in the movie. And in the process of that is where he decides he's going to write the book. But between every kind of situation and interaction, they put a chapter or two of the book that he's writing.
Mm.
And one of the things that was repeated in the second book, the one that Monk is writing, is I love my mama, I hate my mama. You know, and the character, the main character that he's writing, what was his name? Van Gogh?
Mm-hmm.
Because he couldn't get away from his academics. Van Gogh is constantly saying that. And he says, I think only a couple of times does he say something about his father, that he hates his father, but he looks like his father, and he hates his dad, so he hates him. So, you know, he went real deep
Mm-hmm.
for a thug.
Yeah.
That section. But I was kind of bouncing it off of somebody else, an online acquaintance, and I said, you know, that entire book, within the book, kind of makes sense if you start thinking about Monk's family dynamics.
Mm.
Everybody in his family was a professional, and again, this is the other side of the stereotype, which is if you don't become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, then yeah, you haven't quite touched Black excellence.
Mm-hmm.
So his mother was a teacher, his father was a doctor, his older brother was a doctor, his older sister was a doctor, and he is a doctor of education,
Mm-hmm.
professor. So it's like everybody has hit the excellence milestone, but their dynamics are so off because, you know, the older two feel like Monk got his parents' attention and affection more than
They did.
You know, he was the dad's favorite.
And wasn't he the youngest?
He's the baby.
Yeah. So.
He's the baby. So, while in the scenes that you see in the movie, they had their typical brother-sister banter. There's kind of this underlying edge to
Yeah,
it.
like you can tell that they weren't always that close, or like maybe I don't want to say that they weren't close, but they've always kind of maybe had this
tense
I don't even think it was
dynamic.
tense. It was just like they had that brother and sister relationship where they fought, but they kind of got over it. And then they fought, and then they might have got over it and figured it out, and then became like cool again. And even his brother, to a certain extent, it was kind of like, I feel like the brothers was a little bit more complicated, but I feel like him and his sister, they had a certain bond, but at the same time, they argued about stuff, or they didn't agree, or always see eye to eye on certain things.
I think they kind of accepted that there was this thing where each parent had a different affection for each one of the kids, but individually they read it as, well, mom likes him more, dad likes him more, and they've internalized it. And when I say tense, you kind of see that where it's like they'll banter with each other, but then they're like they're a little bit like strangers almost. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Now, what Zenny was talking about with the older brother, Sterling K. Brown played the older brother, Clifford. And he was what is it again?
He's a plastic surgeon. Yeah.
Recently divorced, and he came out of the closet, finally owning that he's gay. His family members have always known it, but again, he's been trying to measure up, and in particular measure up for his dad. So after the dad died, and the dad had died several years before, but he kind of had this thing where he was like, he wished his father knew. But it also kind of put him at a distance from his siblings because he didn't feel like he was accepted by his dad because he was gay. His mother accepted him, but she still held that thing in the background like, I wish you weren't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and even though his siblings accepted him as he was, there was still that distance and tension because, hey, the two most important people in the family had an issue with who he was. Why wouldn't his siblings as well?
Mm-hmm.
So there was that. Tracy Ellis Ross plays the sister Lisa, and she worked at a clinic. Now, in the movie, and you feel free to jump in anytime here.
Mm-hmm.
They changed a little bit of detail to kind of take it out the political realm. I'll let y'all read about that, but it didn't change the overall storyline in the movie. But I also think how it was presented in the book is still, I would say, it's more important.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put it that way. So what else did you want to talk about here?
Also, Lorraine was a very big part of their lives because she was like, I guess, the maid of the house, or she kind of took care of the kids, I guess, growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And now that they're older, I noticed, like, when they first came home, she was referring to him as Mr. Monk. And, you know, the sister, he also was like, she was like Miss Lisa and stuff like that. But he was kind of like, Monk was like, I don't want you to just call me Monk. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and even when she said that, or even when he said that, I'm sorry, she was kind of just like, no, I can't do that. I'm not changing your name after all this time. But it was just like he had this very close bond with her almost. And when the brother was like, you know, after things happened with his sister and also the mom started declining in health, he was kind of like, well, you need to let Lorraine go. Yeah. If it's going to cost too much money because I can't afford it, you know, and where else are you going to find the money?
Mm-hmm.
And basically he was kind of like, no, I'm not doing that. She's a part of the family.
Right.
So she had a very big part in their lives as well. Even down to like when they finally did get the mom in a nursing home, she was letting them know, like, look, you're not doing this right.
Yeah.
This is how she likes her food. This is how you guys need to start doing things. You guys don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it was kind of one of those things where I feel like she played a major part in their household and even in like just the dynamic that they kind of had. Even at the end when she got married, it was like, you know, when at the moment when the brother was feeling his lowest what was that again? I forgot his name that quick. Cliff. When he kind of started feeling down, just feeling like not accepted for just being himself or being who he set out to be.
Mm-hmm.
After his divorce, you know, he's there, he's with his other friends and stuff like that at the house, and his brother is like, look, you got to take these guys and go, like, y'all can't stay here.
Yeah. And she was like, your family.
She said, your family, you're not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody can stay for the wedding, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a good story.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good story. Like I said, I've watched it 4 times. I read the book. When I heard the movie was finally in theaters, I rushed to get the book because I'm like, all right, I have to know what the real story is before I get into that story. So I can really say fairly whether this is a good film or not. And overall, I have to say, a lot of times people say, oh man, the book was better than the movie. I'll say that, yes, I think the book was better than the movie because it gave a lot more detail and background. But I think this film did the movie justice.
They picked a lot of good actors in this movie, like Issa Rae. They had Erica Alexander in there. They have just like a lot of
David.
Yeah, they have like a lot of good names in here too. And honestly, I didn't really hear much about the movie after it came out. Like, I didn't really hear a lot of people talk about, oh, I want to go see that, or oh, this was a good movie. Like, I didn't hear anything.
It had a limited release because I had to, if I wanted to see it in the theater, I would have had to go into Pennsylvania. So they had it in a limited amount of theaters. You may still be able to find it in the theater depending on where you are. Limited amount of theaters in the major cities. So I either had to go into Pennsylvania or down to DC to see this movie, which is why I bought it on Vudu because I'm like, I ain't doing all of that. That's doing too much.
Yeah.
So, and I think it did win an Academy Award, and it was released late. This was released in December. And
it was September.
Was it September? I thought it was December. At least I didn't start seeing a lot more about it until
I remember it coming out like around the summertime, so that made sense. But like, again,
you know what?
Once I heard that it came out, I didn't hear anything else about it.
And you know what? That's what it was. I think it was going through the film festivals in the summer, but I don't think it was officially released until December. I gotta check the post. The poster's online, but I have to check the poster. I'm pretty sure it was December, so it made it just in time for the award shows and what have you. But it's definitely worth seeing if you want to see a social commentary satire about how the entertainment industry deals with Black stories. This hits home all the way. And without giving away the whole movie, the last scene, the final scene where the movie ends, it puts a nice little bow right on it. So definitely check this one out. It doesn't take itself too seriously. There's a lot of funny moments throughout the story. Jeffrey Wright plays Thelonious Monk Ellison. They call him Monk throughout the whole thing. And even though his description in the book doesn't match Jeffrey Wright's appearance, I think he pulled off the character perfectly. He's pretty serious in this whole thing. Like I said, college professor, academic, humor has to have depth to it. But I think he played it very well. All of the other people in the movie, they played off of each other very well. It's enjoyable. So make sure you check that out. That being said, and I haven't done this in a long time. This is the second time I did it. Maybe we can keep up with it next time, because usually I go week by week deciding, okay, what are we going to see? And that's why you guys get, last minute information about what's coming up. But next week, we will be doing The Color Purple. Not the one that we did before, the musical. So if you haven't seen it, kind of late. But
and they just released it on HBO Max, so now you can watch it streaming.
You can stream it there. So get ready for that conversation. And until then, we'll see you next week. Bye.